Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Qualtrics Introductory Workshop today. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Haley and I'm a consultant here at FMP. Survey design is something that I'm really excited about and that I spend a lot of my time doing, so I'm really excited to have this workshop for you guys today. This will be just a high-level workshop going over some basics on how to get started in Qualtrics and creating your surveys. And we'll also cover some cool tips and tricks along the way that will hopefully be helpful to you in your projects going forward. So just to give a high-level overview of what our agenda will be today, we're going to first talk about building a survey. So this will include covering things like survey blocks and creating survey questions and different question types. We're also going to spend some time talking about survey logic and branching. So these are some cool strategies for customizing the survey experience for users based off of various question answers or data points. Then we're going to spend some time covering survey distribution. So there's a couple different strategies for this, and we'll cover just a few of them today. Finally, we'll of course have time for questions at the end, and I'll go over some Qualtrics resources that are available to us. Today's session is going to be mostly demonstration based so that I can show you some of the features we'll be going over in Qualtrics, but definitely feel free to chime in if you have questions at any point. I'd be happy to cover them with you. So let's get started with building a survey. The first thing you need to do is create your project. And there's a couple different strategies for creating a project. It can either be done from scratch using a blank project or from a copy of an existing survey. So I'm going to navigate over to the survey platform so that I can show you how that works. So now that we're in Qualtrics, this is just the Projects tab of your home screen of Qualtrics, and we're going to click on Create New Project in the top right-hand corner. Once we go there, it will take us to the creation page. And since we want to make a survey, we'll just go ahead and click on Create Your Own Survey. Then that will give us a couple options. We can either create a blank project, or we can create a project from a copy or from the library. The nice thing about creating a project from a copy is that all of the surveys existing within your library will generate under source project. So you can select any survey that you've been previously made, like this demo survey I made earlier, and then it will copy in that survey exactly, taking out all of the data. This is nice if you're creating multiple surveys for the same client and you want to keep things like the theme of the survey or a particular layout or set of questions, and you want to keep that consistent across surveys. For today's purposes, I'm going to just create a blank project and we can go ahead and give it a name right in this section. So I'll just call it Demo Training Survey. And this will allow me to show you some of the features we're going to go over later on. And then once you're good to go, you can just click Get Started. So once you get started with your survey, the first thing you're going to notice within the survey are your survey blocks. Each survey starts with a default one block, and if you need to add additional blocks, you can just click Add Block below. Blocks are just ways to organize and store your survey. So you can name these blocks to help keep your survey organized at any time. The only thing to note about questions stored within different blocks within the survey is that it will insert a page break in the survey at that time. But survey users won't be alerted to anything related to the blocks, so it's really something to help you on the back end of your survey. Once you have your blocks set up, you can start creating your questions. So each survey starts with a default multiple choice question, and when you go into that survey and open the question, you'll be taken to the question's unique editing pane. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, as well as how to import questions from the question library. So as you can see here in my survey, I have my default question block, and let's say I want to make this a welcome page. So I can rename my block to say welcome, and I can also reorient my question to a different question type. Over here on the right-hand side is where you'll see the unique question editing pane, where you can change the type of the question, you can change the number of choices, you can change the layout of the question, or anything like that. So I'm going to go into question type and make this a descriptive text. As you can see, there's multiple different question types that you can use within Qualtrics. So here I can just write some default text, welcome to my survey. And if I wanted to add another question in a different block, I could just add block below and I could create a new question. Something I really like to do about with Qualtrics is import questions from my question library. This is a nice feature if you want certain aspects of another survey that may already exist, but you don't want to make an entire copy of that survey. So how you do that is first going in to change the question type, and then you'll go all the way to the bottom to replace from library. And I'm just going to click here on question library. Once you do that, you'll see that you can browse your own question library. You can also browse the Qualtrics library. So this is just a bunch of default questions. Sometimes they'll be around demographics or commonly used survey questions that you can always reference if you'd like to. And then you can also go into your surveys, and then you can pull up any question from a survey stored within your library. So I'm going to go to my question library, and then you can either import a whole entire block or just a single question. And I saved this question earlier to the folder demo, and then I'll just click on that question here and click import. Then the question will appear exactly how it was in the other survey in which I saved it from. So just so you know how that works on the opposite side, I'll show you how to save a question. And how you can do that is go to block options, and then you can go to copy questions to library. You can also copy the whole block to library. And once you do that, it'll ask you to pick a folder. So now I have two parts of my survey in the questions, and so we can go over a couple more pieces. This gets into survey logic and branching. So now that I've talked a little bit more about the question types, we can talk about how to customize surveys. Survey logic and branching I find really useful for making surveys efficient for the survey user. So we all know how hard it is to get people to take surveys in the first place. So if we can personalize it to them and make sure that they're not seeing any parts of the survey that they don't need to see, then that's going to really help with their participation and making it as quick and painless as possible. So to do that, I'm going to add another block so that we have options for those who want to continue in the survey or those who don't. So I'm going to add another block that's just a rating question, and I'll call this block rating. And I can say, how satisfied are you with this survey? So something else cool about Qualtrics is that they have automatic choices. So it auto recognized that I used the word satisfied and then came up with my automatic choices below. So if I wanted just 5 choices, I could just press this minus button and my automatic choices would stay the same from extremely satisfied to extremely dissatisfied. I'll also want to add a block for those people that don't want to continue in the survey. So I'll just make that a thank you page. So again, just like I did for the welcome page, I can use descriptive text. And I'll just write, thank you for your time. And it's helpful to have all of your blocks labeled when you go in to add things like branching or survey logic, so that it's easy for you to move around questions and know exactly what you're moving around. So I'll add our title to our question block that just is called question. So to add a branch within your survey, you can go into this survey flow at the top left-hand corner of your screen. When you open up the survey flow, this is the default orientation for any surveys that you will go through. So it just has all of your blocks in a straight line in order. And so if you want to add any piece of the survey, you can add it here using these add below buttons. I see I have a hand raised. Does someone have a question? Christine, go ahead and ask.
Hi, Haley. This is Christine. I have one question. Is there an upper limit to the number of blocks or the number of questions that you can have in a block?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Christine. Technically, on the platform of Qualtrics, there are no limits to the size of the survey that you can make. But one thing that I've run into in the past is how easily platforms like Google Chrome or Internet Explorer can store data. So in terms of the size of your survey, that's one thing you're going to want to look out for. So always preview your surveys before launching them. Okay, so getting back to our survey flow, I'm going to add a branch below our question block. So I'm just going to hit this green add below button. And once you do that, you'll see you'll have a ton of options. You can add embedded data, you can add another block. And so I'm going to add a branch. When you add a branch, it'll tell you that the branch will not be triggered until you add a condition. So we can just click on add a condition. And you have multiple ways you can add a condition, either based off of a question, an embedded data piece, even a location. So we're going to stick with question. And once we do that, a drop-down menu will auto-populate of all the questions within our survey. So we'll just click on our question that asks if individuals want to continue in the survey. Then our answer choices will also auto-populate. So first, we're going to set the branch for those individuals who do want to continue in the survey. You can also do the reverse and select if certain answer choices are not selected or not displayed. Then I'm going to want to add an element for where those individuals will be taken if they select yes to that question. Something else I like about the survey flow is that it's fairly easy to move around the different pieces in your survey. So I'm just going to click move on my rating block, and that allows me to drag and drop this piece exactly where I want it to go. So what this means is that those individuals who answer yes to the first question will be taken to the rating block. Now I'll want to add a branch for the opposite choice. So if they select no. One thing to make sure you're doing when you add branches is that they're on the right stem. So I want to make sure my other branch comes off the same stem as my first branch for that question. So again, I'll just add a condition based off of my question. And then this time I'm going to set it for those people who select no. And then again, I can drag and drop my thank you screen here for those individuals. Now, let's say I wanted these individuals who gave a rating to also see the thank you screen. I can just add a new element below that rating and insert a block, and then a drop-down menu of my blocks will become available, and I can just select the thank you block. So you can see why it's helpful for having those blocks labeled so you can see exactly what you're moving around within the survey flow. So I'm going to save this, and then we can go ahead and see what that looks like. So it'll say, welcome to my survey. Then it'll ask me if I want to continue. And if I hit yes, it'll take me to my ratings. And I can rate if I'm satisfied, dissatisfied, or anywhere in between. And then it'll thank me for my time. So that's just a little demonstration of how that works. Something else I wanted to cover was display logic. So display logic is a different way that you can set different strategies for where your survey is going to go for individuals based on how they're interacting within the survey. Display logic, as opposed to branching, can be set by individual questions versus a whole entire block. So the first thing I want to do is take out the things in my survey flow so that I'm not messing up anything by having duplicate details in my survey pertaining to the branching and the display logic all at once. So I'm just going to make sure I have all my blocks in here. And then we can go ahead and test that out. So to go to display logic for any individual question, you can just go to this little gear icon underneath the question number. Then the first thing under that editing pane will be add display logic. Then similar to when you were setting a branch in the survey flow, you'll have to set a condition for your display logic. Again, you'll have the option to set a condition based off of a number of different factors like embedded data or contact list information. So we're going to stick with basing it off of a question. And we can use that same question, do you want to continue in the survey? And again, I can choose it for yes or no. So I only want this question to display for those individuals who do want to continue in the survey. So I'll put if yes is selected. You can also add multiple conditions. So say someone had to answer yes to more than one question, you could also add that in. So I'm just going to save this. And then that would mean that any individual who doesn't select yes will just skip this question entirely. A really cool trick about display logic that I like is the in-page feature. So to show you guys that, I'm going to move this question, do you want to continue, right to the next block. So I can just go down here and I'll click on move question. And that allows me to drag and drop my question into this block. And then it'll ask me, do you want to continue in the survey? And then I'll open up my display logic again, and I can check this button that's in page. So what that means is that this display logic will actually happen in real time based on the answer of that individual. So I'll show you how that works in a survey I already have set up. So if we go into preview this, as you can see, I have my display logic set up. Do you want to continue in the survey? And what this will do is take you to welcome to my survey. And then it'll ask, do you want to continue? And if I select yes, then that question will populate below. Or if I select no, then that question won't populate. So I think this is always a pretty cool feature if you want to minimize the number of pages people have to go through, and gives you that flexibility. And then it would just take me to my thank you page. I'm going to go into a little bit about distributions. So survey distributions can happen in a couple of ways, and to talk through those, I'm going to navigate over to the distributions tab. Once you go to the distributions tab, you'll see multiple different strategies for distribution. The most common one, and the one that most of you are probably familiar with, is using a single reusable link. So using a single reusable link allows you to collect anonymous responses. You can distribute the survey yourself through your own email distribution system. So it's usually the easiest way to distribute a survey. So if you click on get a single reusable link, your anonymous survey link will generate. A cool trick here that I always like to use is the customize link option. That way you can always use the link text to write demo survey test or whatever link you wanted, whatever text you wanted to be associated with that link. And then you can just copy and paste that in, and you can have it read whatever you want to avoid those lengthy, unsightly URLs. So anonymous survey links are the most common way for distributing a survey. Another way that I often like to distribute the surveys is through emails. And we can do this through setting up a contact list in Qualtrics. So if you navigate on the left-hand side, you'll see you have multiple options, and I just selected emails, and it'll ask you if you want to compose an email. But before we do that, we're going to want to make a contact list in our directory. So I'm going to navigate over to our directory. Directories allow you to store different information for distributing surveys throughout your survey distribution, and you can store different data for those individuals if you'd like to as well. So I'm just going to click on create list, and I'm going to want to create a mailing list. And you can give your mailing list a name. So I'll just call this one demo list. And from creating your list, you'll have a couple options to do so. So the first option is upload a file, and the second option is manual input. So if you only had a couple of people, you could definitely do the manual input, or you can upload a file. There's a couple things to note about the contact list files, and that's that, first of all, they're required to be CSV files. So you just want to make sure you save it as a CSV versus an Excel file before you upload it. The other thing is that you're required to have the email address in, but you can have any other data fields you want as long as you have that email address associated with each contact. And then finally, you can't have any blank data fields. So something that I learned the hard way in Qualtrics is that if you're missing a certain piece of data in your contact list, but you don't have a placeholder like NA there for it, the Qualtrics system won't be able to appropriately read the data fields for the full file. So you'll just want to make sure that you are reading in the data and filling in all of those blank cells so that you can see it upload properly. So I'm just going to click here to select a file. And I made this list earlier for training demo, and so I'll just open that list. And then as you can see, it'll give you a little preview. I just put in some dummy names here, and it'll read in all my data fields that I had set up. So first name and last name, email address, supervisory status, pay grade. And then I'll add my contacts. And it'll take just a minute to upload your contacts. And when you're uploading contact lists, the other nice feature is that it'll create personalized links for those users in your survey, and you can access those personalized links at any time. So now that our contacts are uploaded, I can view the results, and this will tell me if any of my uploads failed, and that would be like if you had that missing data or anything like that. So now that I know they're successfully uploaded, I can just refresh my screen. And as you can see, my contacts have uploaded, and something really nice about the contact list is that, let's say I had the wrong pay grade in for Mickey Mouse and I needed to quickly go in and change that. Instead of making a whole new list and uploading it, I could just go to my directory, open my single contact, and I can click in these attribute fields and change that at any time and then save it. So if you need to make a quick update, if you had a typo in an email address, you can always make those quick changes if you need them. So then I'm going to head back to my survey. Now that I have my directory contact list set up, I can distribute my survey via an email. So I'm going to go back to distributions and compose an email. So there's a couple of cool tricks that I really like about the email composition feature in Qualtrics, and I'm going to show you a couple of those now. First, you'll want to set your contacts in the to list. So when you go to select your contacts, then all of the contact lists in your library will generate. And so I can just search for my demo list, and you can either select the entire contact list or just one contact at a time. The next is the from line. So something that's a nice feature about the Qualtrics distribution emails is that you can actually set a reply to email address. So if I wanted reply emails to come to me, then I could definitely just set that here. And then that way people can reply directly to the emails they get from the survey system if they have questions or anything like that. You can also schedule your emails. This is really helpful when you're launching, say, multiple surveys at the same time, or if you're wanting to launch a survey when you're going to be in another meeting and you don't have time to launch it or anything like that. So you can send it with any of these preset dates, or you can set a custom date. So if I wanted this survey to launch at 2:30 today, I could just schedule it for then. Then you can set a subject line. So I'll just put in test survey. And then you can customize the body of the text. So another cool feature of the email distributions in Qualtrics that I think can also really help with increasing that survey participation is customizing this email. And one way we can do that is by pulling in the first name of individuals from our contact list. That way, instead of getting just a generalized, please take my survey email that went to multiple people, they can get a personalized email that says, hi, Haley. Thank you so much for your time. Please take my survey. So how we do that is use this piped text feature. And that's what's going to be in this A that's in brackets. And so all that piped text means is that it's text that doesn't look like real words to you, but it's going to pull in data once it goes live. So I'm going to click on insert piped text, and then I'll have all these different options. I can do it from a survey question, from an embedded data field if I had one in my survey. And I'm going to go down here to contact field. And then I'm going to select the recipient's first name. So that means that when my survey launches and I send it to my full contact list, each contact's first name will be pulled in to their email. So I can have my email read, hi, thank you for your time, or whatever I want. And then I can customize. I always like to draw extra attention to the survey link. If you wanted to highlight it, you can do that. And you can just schedule your email. One other really nice feature of the email distributions is that you can download a history of your distribution following your launch of the email. This will give you the personalized links associated with each person's survey. So if you ever needed to pull a link for an individual, if they lost their email somehow, you can go in there and it'll come in an Excel export and you can use that feature. You can also see the status of each individual. So it'll tell you if the email was sent, if the email was opened, or if their survey was started or completed. So before I pivot back to my presentation, does anyone have any questions on survey distribution? I know we covered a lot, or a survey logic or flow.
Is there a way to, sorry, Michael here, is there a way to like set reminders to people if they haven't completed their surveys?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I can actually show you how to do that. So I will just reopen up Qualtrics. And how you can schedule a reminder is through this little schedules reminder block. And I like to do these as far in advance as possible if I know I'm going to want to increase participation. And you'll see in this to line that it'll automatically fill in unfinished respondents. So that means it's tracking in the data and analysis who from that contact list has already taken their survey. And then it will only send those reminders to unfinished respondents. So that avoids having extra emails to those people who already completed the survey.
Awesome, thank you.
Great. Any other questions at this time? All right, well, just to wrap up, I'll go over a couple of quick Qualtrics resources that I find really useful. The first one is the Qualtrics support page. This is my ground zero for any questions I ever have in Qualtrics. They have a ton of detailed information on the different features in Qualtrics, and it's always a really easy reference point. It usually provides step-by-step instructions, so I always start there when I have questions. The next resource is the Qualtrics on-demand webinars. I only recently discovered these and they're pretty cool. So the on-demand webinars cover a bunch of different topics, not just about creating surveys, but about best practices in survey design and some hot button information. So I've listed the link to where those webinars can be found here, and you can register for them and watch them in real time, or they have them recorded. And then finally, we have our FMP Qualtrics resources. We have a ton of those in our own system in the Learning Committee Teams folder, so definitely feel free to access those. And of course, my favorite resource, Phone a Friend. Please reach out to me or anyone who you know uses Qualtrics. It's always great to troubleshoot with people, and I always like learning new things and the opportunity to learn new things, so always happy to brainstorm if you have any Qualtrics questions. Does anyone have any other questions before we wrap up today?
Haley, this is Christine again. Are you able to share these slides so that way we can have access to those links on the previous slide?
Yes, absolutely. I will distribute the slides and the recording so you have all the demonstrations following this presentation. Thanks, Christine. All right, well, thank you guys so much for being part of this workshop today. I hope you found it useful and learned a little something new about Qualtrics. And as I said, always reach out if you have any questions. I'm always happy to talk more.
Thanks, Haley. That was great.
Thank you.
Thanks.